Since ancient times, cities have risen as the beating hearts of civilization, centers of power, faith, and trade. Some evolved into sprawling giants like New York, Paris, or Tokyo. Others vanished, lost to war, crushed by disaster, abandoned by time. Some became ghost towns, empty shells echoing past lives. Others disappeared completely, buried beneath earth and myth. But ruins don't stay silent forever. Thanks to archaeology and chance discoveries, some of these cities are being unearthed, one layer at a time. Here are 10 legendary lost cities the world nearly forgot. Hidden deep in the mist-veiled jungles of Colombia's Sierra Nevada, there lies a city once erased from memory, not by accident, but by the slow, choking crawl of time and conquest. Long before the heights of Machu Picchu ever caught the breath of explorers, this place had already risen, thrived, and vanished. Known to its original inhabitants as Tayuna, it was a sacred stone city carved into the bones of the mountain, with terraces that spiraled like echoes and roads that shimmered in the rain like veins of the earth. It is said that over 160 platforms cling to the hillside, each whispering stories no one now remembers. Then came the silence. Whether it fell to plague, to war, or to the invading hand of the Spanish, no one knows. What is known is this: the jungle swallowed it whole. For centuries it slept, undisturbed, until 1972, when looters stumbled upon its forgotten bones and dubbed it Green Hell. What they found was not just a ruin, it was a ghost of a world that had tried, in vain, to remain hidden. Rising from the dust-blown hills of southeastern Africa, the ruins of Great Zimbabwe lie silent, a city once crowned in stone and wrapped in power, now stripped bare by centuries of silence. Shattered towers and crumbling walls stretch across the sun-hardened earth, echoing with the faded breath of a forgotten empire. Built not by legend, but by the skilled hands of the Bantu people, this city of stone bore no mortar, only the weight of perfect precision. Between the 11th and 15th centuries, it flourished, a thriving center of trade, gold, and sacred ritual, its influence spanning far beyond its granite walls. But who ruled here? Which great kingdom carved its seat into the earth? That knowledge was swept away long ago. At its height, it may have held 18,000 souls, bound by culture, commerce, and belief. Then, as swiftly as it rose, it emptied. Scarcity crept in. The waters may have dried, the soil may have failed, or the pillars of power may have crumbled from within. Now, only the ruins remain, solemn and immovable, as if waiting for history to remember what time tried to erase. Beneath the windswept plains of central Mongolia, where the steppe stretches endlessly into sky, the bones of an empire sleep beneath the soil. Karakorum, a name once spoken in reverence, rose not with grandeur, but with purpose, shaped by the ambitions of Khans who dreamed of dominion across the earth. What began as a modest outpost slowly transformed under Ogedei Khan into the nerve center of the Mongol world, a place where caravans crossed paths with diplomats and prayers mingled with the clash of steel. Great halls were raised, among them the palace known as Tumen Amgalan Ord, meaning Palace of Myriad Peace. But it was a peace forged in conquest. A silver tree once stood at its heart, rumored to pour wine from its metal branches, a monument both to decadence and mastery. Yet no empire escapes the pull of decline. By the late 14th century, Ming armies swept through, razing what remained. The city flickered, faltered, and finally fell silent. What endures now are fragments, stones whispering in the dust, and a forgotten stupor, its purpose lost to the centuries. Discovered again in the 19th century by explorers searching for ghosts, Karakorum remains less a city than a question. of how power rises and how easily it slips beneath the earth. Deep in the jungles of Cambodia, where roots coil like serpents around crumbling stone, lies the skeleton of a city that once ruled the horizon, Angkor. It was more than a capital. It was the beating heart of the Khmer Empire, a world of palaces, vast reservoirs, and endless spires rising from the earth like fingers reaching for forgotten gods. At its center stood Angkor Wat, a temple not merely built for worship, but carved as a map of the cosmos, a stone hymn to both heaven and empire. But power is delicate, and time has a hunger nothing escapes. The empire fractured, faded, and the jungle advanced like a patient predator, swallowing streets, devouring shrines, until only broken silhouettes remained. Centuries passed. Birds roosted where kings once stood. Rain fell through collapsed roofs, whispering of glory no one remembered. When the West stumbled upon it again, they called it a wonder. But the people who lived nearby had never truly forgotten. They called it sacred, cursed, eternal. Angkor is not just ruins. It is the echo of a civilization too vast to vanish completely, yet too fragile to remain untouched by the slow decay of time. At the edge of the world, where frostbitten winds lash the coast and black waters cut into the land, there once stood a city built from timber, trade, and war. Hedeby, half buried in the marshlands of what is now northern Germany, was the heartbeat of Viking commerce, a fragile jewel strung between the North Sea and the Baltic. Caravans and longships converged there, bearing furs, blades, amber, and whispers of distant empires. Smoke curled above the thatched roofs, and gold passed between calloused hands like falling leaves. It rose fast, fed by ambition and blood, a place where kings made threats and merchants made fortunes. But like so many things born of fire, Hedeby's life was brief. When the tides of vengeance came crashing down, it was Harald Hardrada who brought the storm. The city burned, its wharves and homes swallowed by flame and ash. What remained was silence, and below that, a graveyard of splinters and buried relics, waiting beneath centuries of mud. Hedeby is no longer on any living map, but its ghosts still drift across the marshes, carrying the scent of salt, smoke, and forgotten conquest. Where the dust of empires still clings to stone, and the sun falls heavy over broken thresholds, lies the forgotten city of Taxila, a place once carved by ambition, where east met west and knowledge flowed like water. Known as the City of Cutstone, it stood at the crossroads of ancient worlds, where Persian satraps walked beside Indian sages, and the whispers of Alexander's armies brushed the wind. Founded long before the pyramids were old, Taxila thrived not by sword, but by thought, its walls echoing with philosophy, science, and the chants of those who sought truth beneath the stars. But wisdom offers no shield against time. Waves of conquerors came, Kidarites, Huns, the shadows of forgotten hordes, and with them, silence. Trade routes shifted, temples fell, fire swept the streets where once ideas had bloomed like spring. Now, only fragments remain, a shattered staircase, a worn statue, a buried memory beneath the earth. Taxila may be ruins, but in every broken stone lies a question of what was lost when the light went out, and whether such brilliance can ever burn again. Once, where the great river spilled into the wide delta, a city rose, not from stone alone, but from vision. Memphis, a name spoken like a memory trapped in sand. Founded, they say, by Menes, the unifier of two lands, the one who pulled chaos into order. This place, carved at the throat of the Nile, became more than a capital. It was the beating heart of an empire. Gods whispered through its temples, and kings etched their names in its bones. Trade flowed through its gates like lifeblood, and the air trembled with prayers to Petra, the creator who shaped the world from silence. But nothing defies time forever. As centuries passed, the sacred city dimmed. The rise of new gods, new empires, and the slow erosion of belief left Memphis hollow. When the Arabs came, the last breath escaped its lungs. Stones crumbled, statues fell. What remains is not a city, but an echo. Fragments of palace, shards of temple, the colossus of Ramesses staring blankly into a future that no longer remembers him. Memphis is not lost, only sleeping beneath the weight of centuries. Carved into rose-colored cliffs, where desert winds carry whispers older than language, Petra still breathes beneath the sandstone. Born from rock and fire around the 6th century BC, this city of shadows was once the crown jewel of the Nabateans, masters of stone and stewards of water in a place where life should have been impossible. Petra was not built, it was etched, cut directly into mountains that bled crimson at dusk, with facades so precise they seemed summoned by gods rather than hands. Traders came from all directions, Egypt, Arabia, Phoenicia, drawn to its markets, its secrets, and its astonishing stillness. 1,000 years passed in its stone corridors. Gardens bloomed where no water should flow. Temples rose in silence. Tombs watched over the living. But time, as always, waits for no empire. In 363, the earth groaned and cracked Petra's foundations. And when conquest came centuries later, it did not burn the city. It simply forgot it, left it to fade beneath the sand, beneath the sun, until the cliffs themselves sealed it away. Rediscovered in 1812, Petra returned to us not as a city, but as a question. Who could carve eternity into stone and then vanish without a trace? Pompeii was a city suspended in a single moment, frozen not by time, but by fire. On an August day in 79 AD, life was ordinary. Merchants bartered, children played in courtyards, and smoke curled lazily from ovens. And then, the sky cracked open. Mount Vesuvius, silent for centuries, tore the heavens apart and rained death across the land. Within hours, the city was swallowed in ash and fire. Streets turned to shadows. Bodies, caught mid-step, mid-breath, were sealed beneath a suffocating sky of stone and sulfur. For over 1,000 years, Pompeii slept beneath 6 meters of hardened memory, untouched, forgotten, preserved like a whisper, trapped in volcanic glass. When it was unearthed by chance in 1592, and later uncovered in earnest by the hands of archaeologists in 1860, the world glimpsed something impossible: a Roman city, intact. Mosaics, walls, loaves of bread still in ovens, all waiting. But a third of it remains buried, deliberately, as if some memories were meant to stay hidden. Pompeii is no longer just a ruin, it's a graveyard of motion, a city that died so quickly, it never had time to fade. High above the sacred valley, where clouds drift like ghosts through the Andes, Machu Picchu clings to the mountain, silent, perfect, waiting. Built in the 15th century for the Emperor Pachacuti, this stone sanctuary rose not just from earth, but from vision. Terraces carved the mountain into harmony, temples aligned with the stars. It was a masterpiece of stone and spirit, hidden so well among the peaks that even the conquerors below never found it. For nearly 4 centuries, it stood untouched, abandoned when the Inca Empire crumbled under the shadow of the Spanish invasion. But the jungle kept its secret. Vines wrapped around temples, mist rolled in like a shroud, and time forgot. Then, in 1911, the silence was broken. A historian stumbled through the foliage and found the lost city, though to the locals, it was never lost at all. They had always known it was there, because some places are not meant to disappear, only to wait for the world to remember. So many ruins, yet none are truly silent. Each stone, each shadow still speaks. They remind us that what's lost is never gone, only waiting. Beneath the dust, the stories remain. Thanks for walking through time with me. Until next time.